Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with me today. I promised you that we would have more releases as the week went on because it's Christmas time. And I think at Christmas time, you ought to deliver presents, and we do. We deliver presents of arrest warrants to the bad guys, and we deliver presents of relief and support for the victims of criminal conduct. And as you well expect, we're having Guardians of Innocence number 6. One of the very top priorities here at the Sheriff's Office is to protect children, and protect children who are victimized by evil, sinister criminals, and that's what these folks are. Interestingly enough, these folks who have engaged over a period of time, and we don't know how long because they don't confess that to us, don't have a criminal history. But yet they've sat in the confines of their home and through child pornography sexually abused children. That's right. Every time a child porn image is rebroadcast or is replayed, it's victimization again. Our goal is to identify the victims, the children, and that's exceptionally difficult. But we can hold them accountable, and that's what our detectives did. It's important for me to point out to you that our detectives that work these investigations are simply the very best in the business. But this is, for all the levity about arresting people at Christmas, there's something I need to share with you because I need to frame just how deviant these folks really are. When my detectives have to mentally put their life on the line to view these images and search for these images on devices, they tell me, you know, when the infants still have the medical bracelet on their wrist or on their foot from the hospital from being born and they're already being sexually abused. Or as Brad Copley said, who is our prosecutor, who's simply the best in the business, and he and I have worked together back into the days when I was supervising these units and he was prosecuting cases even then. He said, when I see babies being sexually abused that still have their umbilical cord attached, that's as gross and as horrible as it gets. And then these folks get delight out of watching that and fantasizing about that. So that's how sinister, and that's how evil, that's how sick this conduct is. When we started through our list of folks here, we've criminally charged 12. We filed additional charges on one I'm going to speak of, and then we arrested another for lewd conduct. So we're going to talk about the majority of 14. I kept thinking, well, we'll talk about the top 2 or 3 or 4, but you would go to the next one and I'd say, well, we've got to say something about that one as well. But as we did this roundup, we began this operation on December 1st. We had to obtain 23 search warrants and execute them. And that's a monumental task for us as well as Brad. And I can tell you this, Brian Haas is as dedicated to prosecuting these folks as our chief prosecutor, our elected prosecutor, as anyone is any place in this nation. And he gives us all of the support through his best prosecutors, one of which is Brad Copley. The youngest we arrested was 20. The oldest we arrested was 47. And as you go through, you'll hear about what we did. We have filed today 2,364 felony charges against these folks. We'll go through and talk about their pedigrees. Collectively, they've got about a $12.5 million bond. They were kicked off of platforms, social media platforms, because the platform recognized the conduct, and they would change names or change complete identities, sometimes change different devices, and get back on the platform. So you know they know it's illegal, but they keep doing it anyway. The shocking thing about it, to me, still is the overwhelming majority of these committed all this crime in the silence and hidden in their homes. But let's start with the least of the worst, and they're all bad. Robert Shanks, 47. He was a manager at Bed Bath & Beyond. He was very nonchalant, very flippant. He says, I probably should be remorseful, but it's out there and I'm going to look at it. And you know what, Robert? We're going to put you in jail for it. Merry Christmas. He's in jail based on $252,000 bond. Fortunately for us, in this case, unlike many, his wife made the statement, well, it's time for Robert to go. And that's what we're going to help you do, ma'am. We're going to see that he goes to prison. They live in Davenport. He looked at children as young as 2 years of age. Then there's Clifford Rogers, who's 40. He was employed as a service technician for Payne Air Conditioning in Lakeland. Now, Payne is a very professional company. I know the owner. I do business with Payne Air Conditioning. The thought that this guy might have been to my house frightens me, but he won't be going to anyone's house in the future. Several of our members use Payne Air Conditioning because they are a good company. This guy's married. He lives in Bartow. He took a tablet to work so he could watch videos at work, but he wouldn't admit that he was watching child porn while he was at work. We also charged him with possession of cannabis that he had in the work truck. You know, it's important to understand that his bond is $1 million. So let me say to the owner of Payne Air Conditioner and my friend, he ain't coming back anytime soon, and I hope he never comes back because he never needs to be in another person's house. You didn't know then that he was a deviant, but you know now. Eugene Skaggs, he's 28, from Polk City. When we arrived, he thought it was because of his chickens, and he lived in the city limit of Polk City. No, we're not there to enforce the chicken rules, but we are there to enforce rules upon Grinches. So when we arrested him, we found out that he worked at Watson Clinic in special billing. He also had a website called The Crazy Hemp Guy. He didn't have one that said The Crazy Child Pornographer, but he had The Crazy Hemp Guy. He said his interest in child pornography started after watching the Epstein documentary. He focused on children between 12 months and 24 months in age. We charged him with 15 counts of child porn, possession of cannabis, possession of paraphernalia. He's married. He's got a $166,000 bond. Then we have Joaquin Trejo. He's 44. He's here illegally from Mexico. He focused on children who were 3 to 6 months in age. He had photographs and videos of these babies being sexually battered. Now, we had to send a truck to arrest him. He weighs in at a slim 520 pounds, and he didn't fit in the cars. But he does fit in the county jail, and we will feed him well. 83 counts of child porn, a $415,000 bail, and we also have a hold on him for immigration officials. Then we have Michael Tatishi. He's 47. He's an Uber driver, lives in Lakeland. He's a 20-year retired Air Force veteran. He was a battlefield camera operator He retired as an E7 Master Sergeant, and now he's locked up in the county jail where he should be. He had several devices, and we're still looking through his various devices, as we are with many of these other arrests, so we could be adding on charges later on. He looked at the average child 5 to 7 years of age. Sometimes he would look as young as 2. He was beginning a grow house, so we had him some marijuana. We charged him with that. We charged him with cultivation. Oh, and he had some cocaine. And he had 450 counts of child pornography. His bond's about $2.5 million. Kevin Scott Woods, he's 39. He's single. He lives in Polk City. He gets federal assistance, about $1,450 a month, he said. So he sits at home while you work, pay taxes, give him federal assistance for him to indulge in child pornography. He's charged with 35 counts. His focus was children 6 to 8 years of age. His bond is $350,000. He confessed after we found the images. And we go, why didn't you confess right up front? He said, well, I thought maybe you wouldn't find them. I had them hidden. And if you didn't find them, there's no need for me to confess. But then he threatened to eat people's face off or stab someone while he was in the jail. Nice guy. Don't you want a room with him? We put the detention staff on notice of his bizarre statements. And then there's Henry Dunn. He's a shop manager for Counter Effects by Roger. They specialize in kitchen counters and that sort of thing. He's married. He's from Winter Haven. 1 year ago, we served a search warrant on him, but we couldn't get into his phone. We highly suspected at that time he had child porn. He wouldn't let us into his phone. We couldn't crack the phone. So guess what? Our detectives don't forget. A year later, we show back up with another search warrant, and we catch him with his phone open. And when we arrest him, his wife said, didn't you guys learn your lesson the last time by bothering us? And we go, I guess we're slow learners. We're back, and we got his phone, and it's got pornography on it. 40 counts of child porn. That's right, that's what he's charged with. But here's what's frightening about this guy. He sent and received text, and his fantasy was sexually explicit memes that talked about daddy and daughters doing terrible things and how he fantasized about that. Now, we saw no evidence of that conduct occurring, but he was fantasizing and talking about it. We know that statistically, one research shows us that the overwhelming majority, I think it's close to 80% of these people that possess child porn either have had sexual conduct or contact with children or would if given the opportunity. So he was one step away. So he was charged with promotion as well as 40 counts of child porn. And we also found cannabis at his house. His bond was $616,000. Some people never learn. Just think about it. Just think about this. So the sheriff's office shows up at your house with a search warrant a year ago, and you escape criminal prosecution because we can't get into your phone. You think you'd learn a lesson. But understand, these folks are so fixated on the sexual abuse of children, they throw caution to the wind. Well, he's in jail, where he should be, and we're going to do our best to send him to prison. Then there's Eddie Zumeta. He's a lifeguard at Shades of Green, which is a large hotel on the Disney property. He is not a Disney employee. He's employed by the Department of Army as a lifeguard. That's right. He works for the Department of Army as a lifeguard. He had images of children about 4 years of age. We charged him with 20 counts of possession of child porn. He's still under investigation. He has a $115,000 bond, and he's married. And then we have Mr. Silas Harris. He works at Walmart. He's a night stock clerk. He's also an assistant coach in Little League football of little boys 8 to 10 years of age, called the Lakeland Destroyers. He's dirty in his chats. He talks about one day having daughters and then having children with those daughters, and that's what he fantasizes about. Now, he has no children, but he fantasizes with his other deviant friends about when he has daughters, then he can have children with his daughters. When we talked to him about this, he said he didn't want to talk about his child porn. And they go, well, why not? He said, because that Grady Judd is ruthless. That is the greatest Christmas present I've received or will receive this year, for the child pornographers to recognize that I'm ruthless. No, I'm only the ruthless coach. My great detectives are the ones that are ruthless toward those that they can arrest for child pornography. He had 662 counts of child pornography. Knowing we're ruthless, he still possessed child porn. Silas, we arrived. Merry Christmas. Our Christmas present to you is a jail cell and ultimately state prison. Just consider it the Christmas present that keeps on giving. And then the next man that I want to talk to you about is the one that we did a press release on, and we called him the bad turkey at Thanksgiving. This is Sean Fitzgerald. He was a teacher at Lakeland High School. He was a varsity soccer coach at Lakeland High School. He was a youth director at the First Methodist Church in Bartow. Originally, we charged him with 408 counts of child porn. We told you that he was a deviant of monumental proportions. He liked to be around children. We still have found no evidence and had no one come forward to say that he acted out against their children, and hopefully that's a good sign that it didn't happen. If he did, we need to know. But I told you he was still under investigation. We have added another 389 charges of child porn on top of the original 408 charges. And guess what? We haven't gotten through all of his device yet. There still could be more charges. He's still under further investigation. He focused on child porn with children between 18 and 24 months. What was shocking about him, the detective said when you look at child pornographers, many of them will focus in a certain age bracket. And for all this porn that he had, they estimated that about 80% of it was very, very young children. He's currently got a bond of $3.9 million. He's married. He lived in Lakeland. Right now, he lives in Frostproof in the county jail, the South County Jail. But our last example today was an arrest we made last night. And it epitomizes exactly why we do this. Daniel Sweeney, he's 48. He is a registered sex offender. The Winter Haven Police Department arrested him for 10 counts of child porn in 2007. He got him an attorney, and it took to 2012 for him to be adjudicated. But he went to prison on a 5-year sentence. And he was released at just over 4 years because they get gain time for good conduct. But did I point out to you, we got some legislators that think that we don't give them enough gain time, okay? So pay attention to your legislators this session that wants to let these kind of guys out of prison even sooner. But he had what started out as 5 more years of probation, but he violated his probation. So he ended up having his probation extended by the courts. He ended up with 12 years of probation. And guess what happened yesterday? We received a tip that he was involved in video voyeurism. That's right. What we found is children he had access to in the neighborhood. He had videoed them nude. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? So we arrested him for violation of his probation. He's a registered sex offender that was living in that neighborhood. We still have him under investigation. We saw the nude pictures of the very young girl that he took photographs of, and he confessed. And he said, just go ahead and send me back to prison. I've relapsed. No, you haven't relapsed. You were lapsed the whole time. But this is what happens with these kinds of people. If they're not locked up, they're going to engage in child pornography or worse. Did you hear me say one research tells us that 80% of these folks have had inappropriate, illegal contact with children or would given the opportunity? Here's your sign. And this is why we do it. And we've got him locked up in jail. This is not only our Christmas present to him, but it's our Christmas present to the children in the neighborhood because we got a deviant away from them. It makes me angry when you think about it, and I'm certain it makes you angry as well. So this time we get a high school coach, a youth minister, a youth football coach, a lifeguard, and military veterans, retired military veterans, all deviants. So at the end of the day, the investigation goes on, and here's our warning. We're not done yet. And to quote our predator, that Grady Judd's ruthless. Believe it. Believe my detectives are all ruthless. We're coming after you all. And if you didn't go to jail this time, you'll go to jail next time. We don't give up. Any questions?
How did the guy get the video of the girl? Was he sneaking around, peeking through windows? Or?
Well, we're not going to release how he did that because, for obvious reasons, but we can tell you that he surreptitiously took video of children he had or a child he had access to in the neighborhood.
Without going too far into it, is it fair to say undercover detectives sort of made contact with these guys and it goes from there?
We received tips. And when we received tips that they were engaged in this conduct, we established probable cause. We worked with Brad Copley, who is our prosecutor at the state attorney's office, and were able to obtain search warrants for their homes and their devices. And when we arrived, we seized their devices and found the child pornography. It's a straight up, open and shut type of case.
I know you've been doing this a long time, but just, when you hear the ages of these kids fact that that stuff even exists out there, I mean, it's just kind of stomach turning, your just reaction to it.
Well, to say you're angry with these people is certainly an understatement. The reality is they're prowling around online. We have pushed and pushed and pushed with the federal government to change the rules. We are fought by the big internet providers. You see, there's algorithms that all of these internet providers can read. They could stop the transmission of child pornography in its tracks so people could not move child pornography. But they don't. And we're not catching all of them. And we're not identifying these babies. But the most horrific thing to me is when I talk to my detectives and our prosecutor, and he says, when you now with modern technology, you have sound. When you hear the baby screaming and you see the babies with their umbilical cords still attached, they're that young, being sexually battered by adults, your level of anger is just unexplainable. But our detectives are the ultimate professionals, and you can't lose your cool or they win. So we maintain our cool, and we make great cases. But understand, when we're talking about this, what a horrific crime this is. So help us. People know. Some of these wives knew what their husbands were doing. Some didn't. Tell us. You've got a deviant in the house. You've got a deviant in the neighborhood. You've got a deviant at work that showed you a picture. Tell us. Or else you could wake up one day and it's your daughter you're taking a picture of, or worse, sexually abusing. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
One off-topic question from yesterday's press conference. We got a lot of calls and emails at the station saying that using jailbroken Amazon Fire Sticks isn't illegal.
It is illegal. It absolutely unequivocally is illegal. Those people who think for 1 second that taking a device, jailbreaking it, there's a clue for you, all of you with 3 brain cells or more, and then downloading proprietary data that you otherwise have to pay a source for, well, of course that's stealing. What mental Einsteins can't make that understand that? Like, you have to pay for it here, you use a jailbroke Fire Stick here, and take it without paying for it? Duh.
Okay.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. Get you a bottle of rum. It'll get better. You'll figure it out after about the second drink, but don't drink and drive after you do. Okay? Anything else? Y'all take care.
Thank you.
We got one more day and one more press conference tomorrow. See you all then. Bye.
Tomorrow, 11 o'clock too?
I'm not sure. 11 o'clock, yes. I'm very good at saying, showing up here exactly when they tell me to. Okay?